The unexpected encounter. The scent of scorched metal and ozone hung heavy in the air of Outpost Epsilon 9, a weathered space station on the fringes of human-controlled space. Jake Hawkins wiped the sweat from his brow, leaving a streak of grease across his forehead. He squinted at the faulty power coupling before him, willing it to cooperate. "Come on, you cantankerous piece of junk," he muttered, giving the coupling a gentle tap with his wrench. The device sputtered to life, emitting a faint blue glow. Jake allowed himself a small smile of satisfaction. At 32, Jake was the youngest and arguably the most skilled mechanic on Epsilon 9. Yet his knack for repairs hadn't translated into financial success. The station, much like its inhabitants, was struggling to stay afloat in the vast economic ocean of the galaxy. A sudden tremor shook the station, nearly knocking Jake off his feet. Warning klaxons blared to life, their shrill cries echoing through the metal corridors. What in the blazes? Jake scrambled to his feet, shoving his tools into his belt as he raced towards the source of the commotion. The station's docking bay was in chaos. Technicians and dock workers scattered like startled fish as a massive ship, unlike anything Jake had ever seen, limped into the hangar. Its sleek, organic lines were marred by scorch marks and gaping wounds in its hull. Despite its injuries, the vessel radiated an aura of power and alien beauty. As the ship settled onto the docking clamps with a groan of protesting metal, Jake found himself drawn forward. His mechanic's mind was already cataloging the damage, estimating repair times, and wondering about the strange technology before him. The ship's airlock hissed open, releasing a cloud of sweet-smelling vapor. Jake's jaw dropped as three figures emerged from the mist. They were unmistakably female, but on a scale that defied human norms. Each stood at least 9 feet tall, with powerfully built frames that spoke of both strength and agility. Their skin shimmered with an iridescent quality, ranging from deep purple to vibrant green, and their hair seemed to float around their heads as if suspended in water. The lead alien, her skin a deep indigo, surveyed the docking bay with piercing silver eyes. When her gaze fell on Jake, he felt a jolt of electricity run down his spine. There was intelligence in those eyes, and something else: desperation. "You!" Her voice boomed, causing several nearby workers to flinch. "Are you in charge here?" Jake glanced around, realizing that most of the senior staff had conveniently made themselves scarce. He squared his shoulders and stepped forward. "I'm not in charge, but I might be able to help. Name's Jake Hawkins, chief mechanic." The alien woman's eyes narrowed, assessing him. "I am Captain Zara of the Stellar Sovereignty. Our ship requires immediate repairs. We have limited time and resources. Can you assist us?" Jake's mind raced. The technology of the alien ship was leagues beyond anything he'd worked on before. It would be the challenge of a lifetime. And yet, the risk was enormous. Who knew what trouble these aliens might bring to Epsilon 9? But as he looked at Captain Zara and her crew, he saw not just powerful alien warriors, but beings in need. Their ship was their lifeline, just as Epsilon 9 was his. In that moment, the decision was simple. "I'll do my best," Jake said, offering a confident smile. "But I'll need to know what I'm dealing with. Mind if I take a look?" Captain Zara exchanged glances with her companions before nodding curtly. "Very well, human. But be warned, our technology is not to be trifled with. One wrong move could spell disaster for your entire station." As Jake followed the towering aliens into their ship, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was stepping into something far bigger than a simple repair job. The air hummed with energy, and strange lights pulsed along the corridors. It was beautiful, terrifying, and utterly alien. "So," Jake said, trying to keep his voice steady, "what brings a ship like yours to our humble outpost? Must be something pretty serious to risk a landing in your condition." The smallest of the aliens, though still a head taller than Jake, answered. Her skin was a pale green, with patterns that seemed to shift and swirl. "We are being pursued by those who would see our mission fail." The fate of entire worlds hangs in the balance, human. Your aid may prove more crucial than you can imagine. Jake whistled low. No pressure, then. Well, ladies, let's see what we're dealing with. I may not know much about alien politics or interstellar warfare, but I do know machines. And every machine, no matter how advanced, follows certain principles. As they reached the engine room, Jake's eyes widened in wonder. The heart of the ship was a pulsating sphere of energy, surrounded by intricate patterns of light and metal. It was like nothing he'd ever seen, and yet he could sense its rhythm, its purpose. Incredible, he breathed. Then, rolling up his sleeves, he turned to Captain Zara with a grin. All right, Captain, let's get to work. I may be just a simple human mechanic, but I've got a feeling we're about to make some history together. The alien women exchanged looks of surprise and grudging respect. As Jake began his assessment of the damaged systems, he couldn't help but feel a thrill of excitement. Whatever challenges lay ahead, he was ready to face them. After all, this was what humanity did best, rising to the occasion, solving the impossible, and maybe, just maybe, changing the course of the galaxy in the process. Little did Jake know that his decision to help these mysterious aliens would not only test his skills as a mechanic, but also thrust him into an adventure beyond his wildest dreams. As he worked, the stars outside Epsilon 9 seemed to shine a little brighter, as if in anticipation of the remarkable events about to unfold. Unraveling mysteries. Jake's hands moved with practiced precision over the alien technology, his brow furrowed in concentration. It had been 3 days since the arrival of Captain Zara and her crew, and the engine room of their ship had become his second home. The pulsating energy core hummed a constant, otherworldly melody as he worked. "Pass me the flux calibrator, would you?" Jake called out, his voice muffled as he leaned deep into an access panel. Lyra, the green-skinned alien who had become his unofficial assistant, handed him a tool that looked more like a living crystal than any spanner he'd ever used. "You're adapting quickly to our technology, Jake," she observed, her voice a melody of curiosity and approval. Jake emerged from the panel, wiping sweat from his brow. "Thanks. It's like nothing I've ever seen, but there's a logic to it. It's not just machinery, it's almost alive." He paused, realizing how strange that sounded. "Is that crazy?" Lyra's lips curved into a smile. "Not at all. Our ships are indeed partially organic. They grow and adapt, much like we do. It's why repairing them requires more than just mechanical skill. It requires understanding and intuition." As Jake processed this information, Captain Zara entered the engine room, her commanding presence filling the space. "Report," she demanded, her silver eyes fixed on Jake. Jake straightened, suddenly aware of the grease stains on his jumpsuit. "We're making progress, Captain. The main propulsion system is back online, and I've managed to patch up most of the hull breaches. But there's something odd about the damage. It's not just from weapons fire. Some of these systems look like they've been infected, for lack of a better word." Zara's expression darkened. "You are more perceptive than we anticipated, human. The damage to our ship is indeed not entirely from battle. We are pursued by an enemy that wages war not just with weapons, but with a technological plague." Jake's mind reeled at the implications. A plague that affects machines. Is that even possible? "In our part of the galaxy, it is a grim reality," Lyra interjected. "The Void Corsairs, our pursuers, have weaponized a form of self-replicating nanites. They corrupt and consume any technology they touch, turning it against its users." The pieces started falling into place in Jake's mind. The strange, almost cancerous growths he'd found in some of the ship's systems, the way certain components seemed to fight against repair. It all made a terrifying kind of sense. "That's why you risked coming to a human outpost," Jake realized. "Your own ports might be compromised, but our technology is too primitive to be affected." Captain Zara nodded, a hint of respect in her eyes. "Correct. Your isolation, which you may have seen as a weakness, is in fact your greatest strength in this conflict. The Corsairs overlook your species, deeming you too technologically inferior to be a threat. They do not realize that this very inferiority makes you immune to their greatest weapon. Jake let out a low whistle. Well, I'll be damned. Never thought being behind the times would be an advantage. He paused, a thought occurring to him. But wait, if these nanites are so dangerous, am I at risk working on your ship? Lyra placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder, the touch sending an unexpected warmth through him. No, Jake. We've contained the affected areas. Moreover, your biology is incompatible with the nanites. You are safer than any of us in this fight. As this information sank in, alarms suddenly blared throughout the ship. Captain Zara rushed to a nearby console, her fingers dancing over the holographic display. Void signatures detected, she growled. They found us sooner than expected. Jake's heart raced. How long do we have? Hours at most, Zora replied, her voice tight with tension. We need full power to our defensive systems and engines immediately. Jake nodded, his mind already racing through possibilities. I have an idea, but it's risky. We might be able to use your ship's organic nature to our advantage. If we can stimulate rapid growth in the undamaged sections, we might be able to isolate and excise the infected parts entirely. Lyra's eyes widened. That's brilliant, but incredibly dangerous. The shock to the ship's systems could be catastrophic. Do it, Captain Zara commanded, her gaze fixed on Jake. We have no choice. Lyra, assist him in any way you can. I must prepare the crew for battle. As Zara strode out of the engine room, Jake turned to Lyra, adrenaline coursing through his veins. All right, let's do this. Show me everything you know about your ship's biological systems. We're about to perform some extreme surgery. For the next several hours, Jake and Lyra worked in perfect synchronization. Jake's human intuition and mechanical expertise blended seamlessly with Lyra's deep understanding of her ship's organic nature. They coaxed healthy systems into accelerated growth, carefully excised corrupted sections, and rerouted power in ways that pushed the boundaries of both human and alien engineering. As they worked, Jake found himself opening up to Lyra, sharing stories of his life on Epsilon 9, his dreams of exploring the stars, and the loneliness that had driven him to become the best mechanic in the sector. In turn, Lyra spoke of her people's struggle against the Void Corsairs, the worlds they'd seen fall to the technological plague, and the hope they carried for a better future. You know, Jake said as he carefully grafted a new power conduit into place. A week ago, my biggest worry was making rent. Now I'm helping save the galaxy from space pirates with a tech virus. Funny how life works out. Lyra's laughter was like chiming crystals. The universe has a way of putting us where we need to be, Jake. Perhaps this is where you were always meant to end up. As the ship's systems slowly came back online, stronger and more resilient than before, Jake felt a sense of accomplishment unlike anything he'd ever known. He'd done more than just fix a machine. He'd helped heal a living vessel, and in the process, forged a connection with beings from across the stars. But there was no time to celebrate. As the final systems flickered to life, Captain Zora's voice boomed over the intercom. All hands, battle stations. Void Corsair ships approaching. Prepare for immediate engagement. Jake and Lyra exchanged a look of determination tinged with fear. The true test of their work was about to begin, and the fate of not just this ship, but potentially entire worlds, hung in the balance. As they raced to their stations, Jake couldn't help but feel a mix of terror and exhilaration. He was about to face an enemy beyond his wildest imagination, armed with nothing but his wits and a half-repaired alien ship. But as he looked at Lyra and thought of the trust Captain Zara had placed in him, he knew one thing for certain. Humanity was about to prove its worth on a galactic stage. The battle for survival was about to begin, and Jake Hawkins, the simple mechanic from Epsilon 9, was right at the heart of it. The looming threat. The The ship's corridors thrummed with nervous energy as Jake raced alongside Lyra towards the bridge. Crew members, each towering over Jake, moved with practiced efficiency, their movements a choreographed dance of pre-battle preparations. As they burst onto the bridge, Jake's breath caught in his throat. Through the expansive view screen, he saw the vast emptiness of space torn asunder by the approach of the Void Corsair fleet. Their ships were monstrosities of twisted metal and pulsating, sickly green energy, a stark contrast to the sleek, organic design of Captain Zora's vessel. "Status report," Zora barked, her silver eyes fixed on the approaching threat. Jake stepped forward, surprising himself with his own boldness. "The ship's primary systems are online, Captain. We've managed to isolate and remove about 60% of the nanite infection. It's not perfect, but it's the best we could do in the time we had." Zara nodded, a flicker of approval in her eyes. "It will have to be enough. Lyra, take your station." "Jake," she paused, considering. "Stay on the bridge. Your understanding of our ship's current condition may prove vital." As Lyra took her position at a console that seemed to grow out of the floor itself, Jake felt a mixture of pride and terror. He was about to witness an interstellar battle firsthand, and somehow he had become an important part of it. "Corsair ships entering weapons range," one of the crew announced, her voice tense. Zara's voice rang out, clear and commanding. "Raise shields. Prepare main cannons. Let's show these plate-bearers the strength of a unified front." The ship hummed to life around them, energy coursing through its veins like blood. Jake could feel the vibrations through the deck plates, a testament to the power at their disposal. Suddenly, the view screen lit up with streaks of sickly green energy as the Corsair ships opened fire. The ship shuddered under the assault, but held firm. "Shields holding at 85%, Lyra reported. "The reinforcements Jake implemented are working." Jake allowed himself a small smile of satisfaction, but it was short-lived. The battle had only just begun. For what felt like hours, the space around them became a deadly dance of energy beams and explosive ordnance. Captain Zara's ship weaved through the onslaught with grace, returning fire with precision. But the Void Corsairs were relentless, their ships seemingly able to shrug off damage that should have crippled them. "How are they still functional?" Jake muttered, watching as a Corsair ship regenerated a gaping hole in its hull. "It's like they're adapting." Lyra finished for him, her voice grim. "The nanites allow their ships to evolve during battle, learning from each hit they take." Jake's mind raced. If the Corsairs could adapt, then so could they. "Captain," he called out, an idea forming. "What if we could use their own trick against them?" Zara turned to him, intrigued despite the chaos of battle around them. "Explain, quickly." "The nanites we removed from your ship, they're still on board, right?" "Contained." Jake's words tumbled out in a rush. "What if we could reprogram them? Turn them into a weapon against the Corsairs?" Lyra's eyes widened. "It's possible, but incredibly dangerous. One wrong move, and we could infect our own ship." "We're running out of options," Zara growled as another blast rocked the ship. "Shields down to 40%. Do it." What followed was a frantic race against time. As the battle raged around them, Jake and Lyra worked feverishly to reprogram the captured nanites. Jake's unorthodox human approach to problem-solving melded with Lyra's deep understanding of the technology, creating something entirely new. "Got it," Jake exclaimed, holding up a glowing canister. A swarm of nanites programmed to target the Corsairs' unique energy signatures. They'll disrupt their adaptive capabilities. Zara didn't hesitate. "Load it into the main cannon. Prepare to fire on my mark." As the weapon was prepared, the situation outside grew dire. 2 of the 5 Corsair ships had been destroyed, but the remaining 3 had adapted to most of their attacks. The shield was failing, and hull breaches were reported on multiple decks. "Captain," the weapons officer called out. "Nanite payload ready to fire." Zara's eyes narrowed, focusing on the lead Corsair ship. Wait for it. Wait. Fire. The ship shuddered as it launched the specially modified nanite payload. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, like a wave of metallic sand, the nanites swarmed over the lead Corsair ship. Its sickly green glow flickered and died, replaced by spreading patches of dead metal. "It's working," Lyra exclaimed, her voice filled with awe and hope. The Corsair ships, for the first time, seemed to falter. Their well-coordinated attacks became erratic as the reprogrammed nanites spread from ship to ship, disrupting their systems. "Press the advantage," Zara commanded. "All weapons, fire at will." What had been a desperate defense became a coordinated assault. Captain Zara's ship, battered but unbroken, unleashed a barrage of energy weapons. The Corsair ships, unable to adapt or regenerate, crumbled under the onslaught. As the last Corsair ship exploded in a brilliant flash of light and scattered debris, a cheer went up on the bridge. Jake found himself swept up in the celebration, exchanging triumphant looks with Lyra and receiving a nod of respect from Captain Zara. But their jubilation was short-lived. As the adrenaline of battle faded, the true cost became apparent. The ship had taken heavy damage, and reports of injuries among the crew began to pour in. "We won the battle," Zara said, her voice heavy with the weight of command. "But the war is far from over. The Corsairs will send more ships once they realize this group has been defeated." Jake looked out at the starfield, now littered with the remnants of battle. "So what do we do now?" Zara's gaze was steely with determination. "We repair, we plan, and we take the fight to them. The Void Corsairs have plagued this sector for too long. It's time to end this once and for all." As the gravity of the situation settled over the bridge, Jake realized that his adventure was far from over. He had stepped into a conflict that spanned galaxies, and now, somehow, he had become an integral part of it. The simple life he had known on Epsilon 9 seemed a distant memory. Looking at Lyra, seeing the mixture of hope and uncertainty in her eyes, Jake made a decision. Whatever came next, whatever battles lay ahead, he was in this to the end. Humanity had proven its worth today, and he was determined to see this through, no matter the cost. As the ship limped away from the battlefield, setting course for repairs and reinforcements, Jake Hawkins, the once simple mechanic from a backwater space station, prepared himself for the next chapter in this unexpected saga. The stars themselves seemed to watch, waiting to see what this unlikely alliance of humans and aliens would do next. Battle in the void. The days following the battle were a blur of frantic activity. Jake found himself working alongside the alien crew, repairing damage, reinforcing weakened systems, and implementing upgrades based on what they'd learned from the Corsair encounter. His hands were constantly stained with a mixture of grease and the bioluminescent fluid that served as the ship's lifeblood. "You know," Jake said to Lyra as they worked on recalibrating the shield generators, "I never thought I'd say this, but I'm starting to understand your ship better than any human tech I've ever worked on." Lyra's skin shimmered with amusement. "Perhaps that's because you're not just fixing it, Jake. You're connecting with it, almost as if you were part of the crew." Her words struck a chord in Jake. He realized that somewhere along the way, this alien vessel had become more than just a job or an adventure. It had become a home. Their moment of reflection was interrupted by Captain Zora's voice over the intercom. "All senior staff and Jake Hawkins report to the strategy room immediately." As they entered the strategy room, Jake was struck by the gravity in Captain Zora's expression. Holographic displays flickered to life, showing star charts and fleet movements. "We've received word from our allies," Zora began without preamble. "The Void Corsairs are amassing for a major offensive. They plan to strike at the heart of the stellar sovereignty." A murmur of concern rippled through the assembled crew. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. "But that's not all," Zora continued, her silver eyes blazing with determination. "Our victory has not gone unnoticed. Other species, long hesitant to stand against the Corsairs, are rallying to our cause. We have a chance to end this war, once and for all." The holographic display shifted, showing a massive space station orbiting a dying star. This is the Corsair's main base of operations, hidden in the Charybdis Nebula. Our mission is to lead an assault on this station and destroy their nanite production facilities. Jake's mind reeled at the scale of what they were proposing. Captain, he spoke up, surprising himself. Even with allies, we'd be outnumbered. How can we possibly succeed? Zara's gaze fell on Jake, a hint of a smile on her lips. That, Mr. Hawkins, is where you come in. Your unconventional thinking and understanding of both our technology and the Corsair's weaknesses make you uniquely qualified to help plan this assault. For the next several hours, Jake found himself in the middle of a war council, unlike anything he could have imagined. He contributed ideas on how to counteract the Corsair's adaptive technology, suggested modifications to their ally ships to make them more resistant to nanite infection, and even proposed a daring plan to use the dying star's radiation as a weapon against the Corsair base. As the plans came together, Jake couldn't help but feel a mix of pride and terror. He, a simple mechanic from a backwater human outpost, was helping to shape the fate of multiple civilizations. The day of the assault arrived all too quickly. Jake stood on the bridge, watching as ships from a dozen different species assembled around them. It was a sight that would have been impossible just weeks ago. A united front against a common enemy. All ships report ready, Captain, Lyra announced, her voice tense with anticipation. Zara nodded, her posture radiating confidence and determination. Then let us bring an end to the Corsair threat. All ships, engage. The battle that followed was unlike anything Jake had ever experienced. The void of space lit up with weapons fire, shields flared and failed, and ships on both sides were torn apart in fantastic explosions. Jake found himself racing from system to system, implementing last-minute fixes and adjustments to keep their ship in the fight. As they neared the Corsair base, a massive energy surge erupted from the dying star. The Corsairs had weaponized the star itself, using it to launch devastating attacks against the Allied fleet. We need to get closer to deploy the nanite disruptors. Zara shouted over the chaos of the bridge. But that star weapon will tear us apart before we can get in range. Jake's mind raced, recalling every bit of knowledge he'd gained about the ship's systems. The organic hull, he exclaimed. If we can stimulate rapid growth and regeneration, we might be able to withstand the star's energy long enough to get close. Lyra's eyes widened in understanding. It's risky, but it might work. We'd be pushing the ship beyond its limits. Do it, Zora commanded, trust evident in her voice. What followed was a harrowing journey into the heart of the maelstrom. Jake and Lyra worked in perfect sync, coaxing impossible performance from the ship's living systems. The hull grew and regenerated almost as quickly as the star's energy burned it away, allowing them to push closer and closer to their target. Now, Zora bellowed as they entered range. Deploy the disruptors. A swarm of reprogrammed nanites, the culmination of Jake's work with the alien technology, surged towards the Corsair base. The effect was immediate and devastating. The base's defenses faltered, its adaptive capabilities disrupted at the most fundamental level. All ships, concentrate fire on the primary reactor. Zara's voice rang out across the Allied fleet. The combined firepower of a dozen species rained down upon the Corsair base. For a moment, it seemed to hold. Then, with a silent flash that outshone the dying star itself, the base erupted in a cataclysmic explosion. As the light faded and the realization of victory settled in, cheers erupted across the Allied fleet. Jake found himself swept up in a crushing embrace by Lyra, her joy palpable. But their celebration was cut short as alarms blared across the bridge. Captain, one of the crew shouted. The star, the Corsair's weapon, destabilized its core. It's going supernova. Zara's voice cut through the panic. All ships, emergency retreat. Get clear of the blast radius. As they raced away from the exploding star, Jake worked feverishly to keep their battered ship together for just a little longer. The view screen behind him filled with the awesome, terrifying spectacle of a star's death throes. Just as it seemed they wouldn't make it, their ship lurched into faster-than-light travel, the supernova's shockwave nipping at their heels. As they emerged into safe space, the bridge fell silent. The weight of what they had accomplished, and what they had witnessed, settled over everyone. Jake looked around at the alien crew, beings he now considered friends and comrades. They had faced impossible odds and emerged victorious. The Void Corsairs were defeated, their threat to the galaxy ended. As the adrenaline of battle faded, Jake realized that his adventure was coming to an end. He had played a crucial role in saving not just one civilization, but many. The simple life he had known on Epsilon 9 seemed a lifetime ago. Captain Zara approached him, her silver eyes filled with respect and something else, an offer waiting to be made. "Jake Hawkins," she began, her voice carrying the weight of command and the warmth of friendship, "you have proven yourself a true asset, not just to this ship, but to the entire stellar sovereignty. I believe it's time we discussed your future." Jake looked at Lyra, seeing the hope in her eyes, then back at Zara. He realized that the greatest adventure of his life wasn't ending. It was just beginning. With a smile that held both excitement and a touch of nervousness, Jake nodded. "I'm listening, Captain. What did you have in mind?" As the ship set course for the heart of the stellar sovereignty, Jake Hawkins, once a simple mechanic, now a hero of the galaxy, prepared himself for the next chapter in his extraordinary journey among the stars. A new horizon. The gleaming spires of New Avalon, capital world of the stellar sovereignty, stretched towards the sky, a testament to the resilience and ingenuity of countless species working together. Jake stood on the observation deck of Captain Zora's ship, now officially christened the Epsilon Voyager, in honor of his origins, marveling at the sight before him. "It's beautiful, isn't it?" Lyra's melodic voice came from beside him. Hard to believe that just a few weeks ago, all of this was under threat. Jake nodded, still processing the whirlwind of events that had led him here. "Sometimes I still think I'm going to wake up back on Epsilon 9, and all of this will have been a dream." Lyra's hand found his, her touch sending a familiar warmth through him. "I can assure you, Jake Hawkins, this is very real, and your contributions to our victory are not forgotten." As if on cue, Captain Zora's voice came over the intercom. "Jake, Lyra, report to the main hall. The council is ready to see us." The next few hours passed in a blur of ceremony and accolades. Jake found himself standing before the High Council of the Stellar Sovereignty, beings of various species all regarding him with a mixture of curiosity and respect. He listened in awe as Captain Zora recounted their battles against the Void Corsairs, emphasizing Jake's crucial role in their victory. "And so," Zora concluded, her voice ringing through the Grand Hall, "we stand before you not just to report our victory, but to present a proposal. Jake Hawkins has proven that humanity, despite its relative technological inferiority, possesses qualities that make them invaluable allies. We propose opening formal diplomatic relations with Earth, with Jake serving as our first ambassador." A murmur rippled through the assembled council members. Jake's heart raced. This was beyond anything he had imagined. The head counselor, a being of pure energy contained within a crystalline form, spoke. "Jake Hawkins, you have done a great service to the stellar sovereignty, and indeed to the entire galaxy. But we must ask, are you prepared for such a responsibility? To be the bridge between your world and ours?" Jake took a deep breath, looking at Zara and Lyra, who gave him encouraging nods. "Counselors," he began, surprised at the steadiness in his voice. "A month ago, I was just a mechanic struggling to make ends meet on a forgotten outpost. I never imagined I'd be standing here, having played a part in saving the galaxy. But through this journey, I've learned that sometimes the most unlikely individuals can make the greatest difference." He paused, gathering his thoughts. "Humanity has much to learn, it's true, but we also have much to offer. Our adaptability, our creativity, our determination. These are qualities that allowed me to work alongside Captain Zara and her crew to find solutions where none seemed possible. I believe that by fostering understanding and cooperation between our peoples, we can create a stronger, more unified galaxy. The council chamber fell silent as they considered his words. Finally, the head counselor spoke again. Very well, Jake Hawkins of Earth. We accept Captain Zara's proposal. You shall be our ambassador to humanity, tasked with preparing your people for their introduction to the wider galactic community. As the pronouncement was made official, Jake felt a weight settle on his shoulders, the weight of responsibility, of the trust placed in him. But along with it came a sense of excitement and purpose he had never known before. The ceremony concluded, and Jake found himself back on the Epsilon Voyager, preparing for their journey to Earth. As he packed the few belongings he had accumulated during his adventure, there was a knock at his door. "Enter," he called out. Lyra stepped in, her eyes shimmering with an emotion Jake couldn't quite place. "So, Ambassador Hawkins," she said with a smile, ready to change the course of human history. Jake chuckled, shaking his head in disbelief. "I'm not sure anyone's ever ready for something like that, but I'll do my best." He paused, looking at Lyra intently. "I couldn't have done any of this without you, you know. You and the entire crew. You've become like family to me." Lyra moved closer, taking his hands in hers. "Jake, we've been through so much together. I want you to know that whatever comes next, whatever challenges we face in bringing our peoples together, you won't face them alone." Their eyes met, and in that moment, Jake realized that his journey had brought him more than just adventure and purpose. It had brought him love, transcending the boundaries of species and stars. As the Epsilon Voyager prepared to depart for Earth, Jake stood on the bridge alongside Captain Zara and Lyra. The vastness of space stretched out before them, filled with endless possibilities. "Course laid in for the Sol system, Captain," the navigation officer announced. Zara nodded, then turned to Jake. "Well, Ambassador, are you ready to make history?" Jake took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment. He thought of the life he'd left behind on Epsilon 9, of the incredible journey that had brought him here, and of the challenges and wonders that lay ahead. With a smile that held both determination and hope, he gave his answer. "Ready as I'll ever be, Captain. Let's show humanity the stars." As the Epsilon Voyager leaped into faster-than-light travel, Jake Hawkins, mechanic turned galactic hero turned ambassador, felt a sense of anticipation unlike anything he'd ever known. The simple repair job that had started it all seemed a lifetime ago. Now he stood at the threshold of a new era for humanity, ready to guide his species into a larger, more wondrous universe. The stars streaked by outside, each one a promise of new adventures, new challenges, and new horizons. And Jake, with his newfound family of aliens at his side, was ready to face them all. As the ship hurtled towards Earth, Jake realized that his greatest adventure wasn't ending. It was just beginning. The universe, in all its vast and mysterious glory, awaited. And Jake Hawkins, once a simple mechanic from Epsilon 9, was ready to embrace it with open arms.